In today's video, I wanted to show you how you can create a 40k inspired display case for those minis that deserve pride of place on your wall, without them getting dusty or it breaking the bank. Let's seal those servos and contour that concrete. For the roll. If you're anything like me, you've got plenty of models that you spend hours upon hours painting painstakingly, only to see the light of day when you put them on the tabletop, or those that you do display proudly, having to be dusted constantly, very carefully, and then only breaking when you do. I wanted to find a way of displaying my work proudly so I didn't have any of those issues. I thought about getting glass cabinets, but I didn't like that idea for two reasons. Firstly, it can be quite expensive, and secondly, I just didn't really want a glass cabinet that was blank and boring. I wanted something that would display my minis proudly, but also double as a diorama, an environment that would complement the work that I'd already done. I came across another crafter's work that had made a diorama display case for some of their Votan models, and I loved the detail of the background added to the work that they'd already completed. This is exactly what I was looking for, so I thought I would give it a go myself. The display case they used was one of these, the Bramble from IKEA. Coming in at £22 in the UK, this is a great and cheap option for both sitting on the shelf or being mounted to the wall, which is what I had intended. The double perspex sides allowed one window to be removed, giving access to the minis when needed. The first thing I wanted to do was get the frame built and see what I was working with. After putting the case together without the perspex installed, I began to mock up a rough design as to what I wanted for my diorama. Being a fan of the Imperium, I wanted to create the inner halls of an imperial cathedral. The iconic Gothic style has always appealed to me with the grim dark aesthetic. The centre circle could be a window to a hive cityscape and with statues flanking either side. Candles sitting at the bottom of the pillars and lighting shining down from the top. I imagined other small details like servo skulls floating off the walls and a marble look to the floor maybe. Excuse my terrible drawing, I work better in 3D. Before getting into any of the build, I had to prime the inside of the box black. This step will allow any potential gaps in the future walls or flooring to be hidden rather than revealing a white line. The next thing to focus on was the background of the hive city that I wanted. I decided to bring in that heretical AI to assist, and used the following prompt to generate this image. If you fancy making your own diorama using this image, I've uploaded it for everybody to download via my Patreon page, which you'll find in the description below. To get the flooring, I cut up some square tiles from foam boards to make large slate tiles. However, as you'll see later on, I abandoned this idea in favour of a single solid floor. It was then just a case of tacking the printed background onto the back of the display case with blue tack, allowing me to move it later if needed. The next step was to start piecing together the main structure, and what better material to use than crafter's favourite XPS foam blocks. I also thought about how I might decorate this diorama and went through my bits box to see if there was anything else I could use. I'd already decided in my original design that I wanted to use these GW terrain statues that were gifted to me by a fan of the channel, Stephen. Thanks buddy, and so they had to be included. I also came across these fake light fixtures that would fit the theme really well. To start building the walls, I took a block of XPS foam cut to size to fit the back of the diorama, as well as this 3D printed window which would be the centrepiece of my design. A circle like this isn't typical of the gothic grimdark of the 40k Imperium, but as a kid, my favourite film was Star Wars Return of the Jedi, with that iconic window of the Emperor's throne room, and so I thought it would be a nice fitting homage to put it into this world. I wanted to make sure the window would show off the Hive City image in the centre, which tacking earlier on allowed me to shift it. It was then a case of cutting out the window. I traced out the circle using the compass to make sure there was enough lip for the frame to be glued to, and began hacking away with the craft knife and box cutter. Whilst this method seems a bit rough now, for those that don't have a hot wire cutter, take your time and make your cuts as clean as possible. Most of it will be hidden by the window frame anyway. For those that do have a hot wire cutter, I decided to cut out a template out of thin cardstock to act as a guide for my circle cut. Only having a Proxon and not a freehand cutter, I had to remove the wire and then refeed it through my window hole, allowing me to smooth out the gap without the need to cut through my wall. Once complete, I just needed to hot glue my window frame and make sure the background image was sitting nice and neatly. I then moved on to cutting out more XPS foam to act as the stone pillars to each side of the window, which then received the classic aluminium ball treatment to give me the cracked stone look. To give the stone walls more detail, I used some thin styrene tubes and bent them at 90-degree angles to look like wires climbing up the walls. Stuck down with a few dabs of PVA glue and tape to keep them in place, I covered the wall with loads of different wires moving in all directions, still keeping everything at a 90-degree angle to give it more of an industrial feel. I then repeated this on the opposite side. For the side walls, I cut down more XPS foam, but didn't want these walls to be as thick as the rear. However, it turns out my Proxon is a little too small to be able to thin down these walls on a normal profile. Quick tip if you find yourself in a similar situation, move your connector to the rear, giving you a 45-degree angle on your wire. Take a block of cardboard or something similar and use your guide rail as a backstop and just angle your foam block to match. For the flooring, I crafted two different options. The first, a white marble look that you see here, which I eventually decided against, and the second, a matte grey slate look. Rather than trying to replicate this look through painting XPS foam tiles like I had originally planned, I decided to make my life so much easier by getting some of this. Sticky back printed vinyl. Marketed for kitchen countertops, I thought this would be a perfect alternative to putting in hours of effort trying to recreate the same effect with paint. I picked up mine for cheap on Amazon, which I've linked along with all the other supplies in the description below should you want to get yourself any. As a base to stick the vinyl to, I just cut up more foam board to the same dimensions as the floor and the case, and then carefully peeled back the backing paper and slowly moved along the face, pushing out any air bubbles as I went. Once I was happy with this, I then cut down the edge with a craft knife and folded the excess over into a clean finish. I felt like challenging myself a bit more in this build after taking inspiration from fellow YouTuber Boylai Hobby Time. I've been a fan of his channel and the stunning dioramas he makes for many years. He incorporates lighting into his pieces so well, and I wanted to give this a go for myself in this build. If you haven't seen his videos before, I'd highly recommend them. I felt like the spotlight pieces would be perfect for something like this, and so I got to work cutting off the main faceplate to gain access to the housing where I could store the LED filament lights. Now, whilst I enjoy sharing my techniques, tips and tricks on how to craft terrain, minis and accessories, electronics is not something I'm in any way qualified to talk about. There are far more experienced YouTubers out there that will give you a full breakdown on how to wire up any lighting that you might wish to put in your dioramas, and I encourage you to go and watch their videos. Whilst this is relatively simple to complete, I wouldn't want to give any bad advice, especially in a subject area that I'm not very familiar with, so just do a quick search, after this video of course, for miniature lighting, and you'll find countless videos on the subject that will give you much more detailed guide than I ever could. I know my limitations and I'm happy to admit to them. The next thing I wanted to focus on was some detail pieces, and what Imperial setting would be complete without servo skulls and candles. For the servo skulls, I wanted them to look like they were just floating in the air, and the easiest way that I could think to do this was with some jeweler's chain. You can pick this up at any craft store, and you'll be able to cut it to size with your standard nippers or wire cutters. To get the rigidity for suspending the servo skulls, take a couple of toothpicks and put them into some cardboard or a parts holder like this, and hang the chain from each end. Dab small amounts of liquid superglue across the chain, making sure to spread this across each of the links, and simply wait for it to dry. Then, just snip one of the end links in half and superglue it to your servo skull. I printed my servo skulls as I really liked the design, but nothing would stop you using skulls from the GW Box of Skulls kit and some thin wire or styrene to make your own like I have here. A half skull and a little bit of styrene rod heated at the ends with a lighter to get the curl on the tendrils. As for the candles, cut a styrene rod into small sections of different lengths. Take a piece of parchment or greaseproof paper and dab small blods of hot glue onto the paper. Take a couple of different lengths of the styrene rod that you just cut and sink them in. Once painted with an off-white wraithbone, the hot glue will look like melted wax, and an orange paint at the top will then give the candle the flame look. The last major step was to bring it all together with paintwork, both on a larger scale for the walls, as well as the detail pieces like the servo skulls and statues. Whilst I paint these up, I wanted to give a special shout out to the channel producer, Danny H, and the ever-growing Patreon supporter family. Your continued support means the world to me, allowing me to continue to do what I love and give back to you guys as a community. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon member, the link for which is in the description below. Members get access to a wide range of benefits like STL files for 40k accessories like faction-inspired combat gauges and dice dispensers, updated monthly, as well as private Discord server access and monthly prize draws. Patreon memberships start at just $4 a month. Before putting everything together, I felt the walls needed just a little extra. So using some thin cardstock, I cut up lengths and used some cheap jewellery beads to make some easy steel beams to sit on the side and back walls. All that was left was to put it all together and mount it to the wall. Personally, I think this is a perfect way for you to display those signature minis whilst keeping them safe from dust and knocks, and then when you want to use them, simply lift up the front Perspex sheet and then put them in your box or transport case of your choice. Now the folks over at Famard were kind enough to send me their all-in-one Perspex transport case, and I'm really sold by it. Full disclosure, the link below is an affiliate link, and so it does give me a small percentage from any direct sales that come from it, but this isn't a sponsored video. Famard haven't sent me any script to say or given me any talking points they want me to cover. They literally just asked me, can I feature it in a video and would you mind putting up a description, and we'll send you a case for free. So They sent me a case, and genuinely I'm really happy with it. So if you're interested in picking one up yourself, the link for which is in the description below. Alternatively, if you'd like something a little bit more custom, I actually made a video showing you how you can build your own faction-inspired transport case, the link to which is also at the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.